how do you typically get clients now? What are your main ways that people find you and your business?
That's another thing that I feel like everybody has a different, way they go about it. I found that cold pitching was the best thing for me, and bringing quality to and a personal side to my pitches really helped. So I did apply to different jobs and like things like that. People referred and things like that, which was nice. But above anything else, it was really cold pitching and just making a pitch to my dream client. This is, what I can do for you in particular. So bringing a lot of value right away.
So I was looking on your Instagram. I thought you shared the other day that you had pitched a certain number of times and then that led to a certain number of rejections, but then it led to a certain number of projects. And I think what a big misconception that people have is that, if they pitch a couple times and get rejected, that they're going to fail. And so I'm so glad that you shared that. So can you talk a little bit about, how you handle that, how you handle, um, rejection? Because I know it's really hard. That's one of the hardest things about being a freelancer. And just kind of talk about those kind of numbers that you were talking about. I tried to pull up the post, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't remember which one I said. So when I first started, I didn't make a pitch that was as high quality as I do now. So I was pitching a lot. I did have a lot of people say no, ghost you, not answer at all. And that's just common. I think the most frustrating part is when you see a perfect client opportunity and they would just benefit so much from what you can do for them and then they don't answer. So that just makes it even harder. But what I found is a few things that following up is not annoying. It's going to help you. Like I sometimes follow up 4 times in different ways. So going to like their social media instead saying, hey, did you see my email? Do you want me to follow up? I just was working with a coach because I think you can always get better and learn. So I was working with somebody I really look up to, and she pushed me to do 4 follow-ups. And I was like, really? And on that 4th follow-up, they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, I keep seeing your email and forgetting to answer. So following up is a huge thing. But for the clients that just say no, like there's going to be another one and it's just not meant to be, like, is what I really think. And you just keep going, and it's all in numbers. You don't know if they just hired a writer or a freelancer, if they maybe aren't looking for that for another few months, or maybe they're just so busy. So it never really gets easier to be rejected, especially when it's like a dream client. But I think that's what sets you apart from other freelancers, as if you continue to just keep going, and just keep being accountable to send out those pitches anyways, even if you're discouraged.
That's really good advice. Especially, I know a lot of people. I said it's hard in the freelance world to kind of get over that being too pushy,
Mhm.
or I mean, even conveying your value. So I just have a question, and you don't have to get specific or anything, but just from when I was a freelancer, have you ever had like a nightmare client that ended up not aligning with your values or being kind of tough to work with?
Yes. um,
Again, you
One
don't have to get.
comes to mind. Yeah, one comes to mind, and it was more, I really was like, I just really want this client, and then I'll feel like I have a good, caseload, I guess, client load, I should say. I was like, I just need one more. This one looks pretty good, but it wasn't enough pay, and I knew it right away. But I was like, one is better than nothing, and it wasn't. Um, it was in the mental health area, so I was very passionate about it. I was trying to pass off like, oh, I'm passionate. I want to work with them in exchange for being paid less. It ended up just not working out where, I said I want to focus more on this type of thing. We broke off on good terms. It wasn't like anything bad at the end. It just ended up that she had a lot of specific visions and aesthetics and things that I didn't share, I guess. And some people just have a hard time letting go of the control, I think, is what it comes down to. So I wouldn't say it was a nightmare, but it was definitely stressful just knowing I had them to work for every week. I was like, oh no. So I'm happy to not be with them anymore.
Yeah, so when you look at clients now, is that something that you look for? Someone that's willing to kind of give a
Yeah.
little bit of the control up?
I I think when I start with a client now, I ask more questions and I'm more confident in asking those questions, because when I first started, and that's when I got that client, I was just kind of like, if I ask questions, I'm going to sound like I'm, inexperienced. I'm going to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But now that I ask more questions, regardless what they think about it, I think they will see it as a good thing anyways. But it puts me in a better position. I know what to expect. And really, at the end of the day, I think asking questions anyways does make you look more professional, just because you know what questions to ask. So yeah, I definitely look out for that type of thing now, especially with pay. And I don't like to bring everything back to that, how much you're paid. But I mean, if you don't like what you're doing, especially, like, you need to at least be getting paid the right amount. And I put a lot of passion and extra time into what I do. It's not just doing it and sending it out. So I want to work with people that actually value that and value my time. So
Awesome. Yeah. And I've always found that if I'm charging too little, I can't dedicate the amount of time that I need to the project. And then I don't
right,
end up putting out my
right,
quality work, and then nobody wins.
right.
So I know a lot of people that listen to my podcast are just starting to kind of break into the freelancing world and just starting to acquire clients. So do you have any like example questions that you ask clients when you're kind of deciding if you are a good fit? Could you share just like a couple examples?
Yeah. I usually ask the biggest question is, what is their goal? And like, what is a successful um, person in my position? So if it's a writer, a designer, anything can ask that question. So what is your goal with the content that I'm writing? Like, what is the best case scenario that comes from it? And in a few months, when you look back, like, what will you think, like, what do you hope to see from me? What will be a successful hire in me? So that question of the goal of the content, I think that really shows them that I'm thinking ahead. And even if you're in another freelance area, obviously there's goals for that. You want, if is it a aesthetic? Is it shareable things? Is it educational, or the call to value? Everybody is pretty much different, and sometimes they don't even think of that, or have an answer for that. So that also tells me things too.
Right. So I'm just curious because I actually used to do content writing in the healthcare field. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I didn't.
Mainly I did copywriting for pediatricians and cardiologists, things like that. And something that I found, and I'm not sure if this has been your experience, a lot of them don't even know what content is, why they need it. Have you found that a lot? Do you find yourself having to kind of do more education in your client acquisition process?
Yeah, I think some of them do know and some of them don't. The ones that don't, I think if they're willing to hire me, they're willing to listen to me, which is good. But there are some, like, people in the area, and they just don't understand marketing, obviously, which is a very complicated thing. Or they hear the buzzwords like SEO, and that's what they ask me about. They're like, will you write this SEO, whatever? And it won't really make sense. And I'm like, well, I'm more a content writer. I have the basics of SEO, but that costs more money, to be honest. I was like, a lot of people bring in a separate person for SEO. I was like, that's another whole ball game, honestly. So sometimes I do experience that where they really have no idea, and I kind of get the reins there. Or they think they know what they're talking about, I guess. But I have had a pretty good experience with all my clients thus far, that they either understand it because they have somebody on the team who does the marketing, or I just don't work with the clients that really have no clue, because then they really don't know what budget to have, or time, or anything like that. So
Right. So when you say the medical field, is it mainly practices, or do you work with individuals that are like course creators or people that are working on personal branding? Like, what is your typical client? Just, I'm curious.
um so I worked with a doctor when I first started, and I thought that's what I wanted to do more of. My second client was business to business writing. So I was writing about their product that could be used in long-term care for people, like the stakeholders in that area. I do like working or writing for doctors, but it's more difficult to get a hold of the right person and all of that. And I ended up liking having more of a voice. And I get that with wellness brands. I get to have a voice and be kind of like the person that brings the client in, but also I can also like educate as well, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So it's not just all research based. I do write for Very Well Health, which is very research. It's not really any of my voice. And I really love that, but it's nice to have other clients mixed in that I can have a voice and like I can have a tone and like a friendly, you know, approach to it.
Yep. Do you ever get like writer's block, or do you struggle ever to come up with topics or anything like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm always trying to say like, oh, this is where you can find content ideas to like people I coach and stuff. But I'm like, take your own advice. Like like I'm always like sitting there like, oh, what is a good topic? But I think if you walk away, anytime I actually walk away and do something different and come back, I'm better. It's always just when I'm staring at the blank page that I cannot think of anything.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And so that's probably also where having a variety of clients probably comes in a little bit helpful.
Yes, definitely.
So, as your current freelance position, how do you package your services? Do you do an hourly rate? Do you do based on number of pieces? Just for anyone who's kind of looking to do something similar or might want to enroll in one of your coaching programs, how do you typically package your services?
So, as a content writer, um, I hate being in sales mode and trying to find clients. I mean, sometimes it's fun, but it's not like fun to be doing that every month worrying about money. So, in order to forecast, my income and know what to expect and when I'm going to need to find a new client, I like to do only retainer contracts. And that was something that was pushed on me by my coach, who is a very successful writer and in a different niche. They all do retainer contracts. It's hard for clients that I work with sometimes because like we talked about, they're not familiar with it. um, so sometimes it's harder to get that retainer contract, but I typically do 3 or 6 month retainer contracts, and I do at least 4 articles per month. And that depends on, sometimes I'll do a lower price if it's not a ton of research. If it's a lot of research, that's different. So with content writing, it's that. And then copywriting, I've changed to hourly. So it's usually $75 an hour for copywriting, just because I'm not new, but I'm newer to copywriting. And per project, I also do. So that's a little different. It kind of just depends on your experience and how much time it's going to take. And then my coaching, I do hour calls, half-hour calls, just because I feel like some people need some reassurance or a kick in the butt sometimes, and that's all they need. But for 2021, I found a lot of people were coming to me with the same questions, and I came up with more of a structured process to getting your business started right from the beginning. So instead of somebody that's more established, I'm working with new people who are just starting their websites and not really sure where to start. And like I said, I have the calls, and then I have a 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month package for one-on-one coaching. And that just, I think, is easier to do for people that need a guidance and need a friend, because I think freelancing is really like isolating. And like I try and talk to my fiance and friends about it, and they don't really know what content writing even is. So it's nice to have, that person that gets what you're even doing. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, something that I've seen you mention before in when you're talking both about your own business and about coaching is that you prefer setting systems, not just goals. So, can you tell me a little bit about what that means?
yeah, so when I started writing, I felt like I would set goals like I'm gonna do um, 50 pitches a week or something like that. And instead of really focusing on how I was doing it and the results I was going to get in moving forward, it was more hitting that 50 mark. So as I've progressed through my business, I realized setting systems and routines is much easier, because the goals will just come as you are working through them. So for example, instead of setting a goal of 50 pitches, I'll do find five or research for clients each week, or something like that. It's not as rigid of a goal, but they have goals within them, if that makes sense. So when I'm working with my coaching students or clients, whatever you call them, they typically are like, okay, I'm trying to send out 7 pitches a day and I want to do this and this. And I'm like, how about we focus on the process and how you're going to get there instead of just shooting those out. And then once you hit it, then what, so just make sure that you're continuing to do what's going to move you forward in your business every week instead of doing a different goal. And I know that some goals are great and they're important sometimes, but I think when you're building a business and trying to grow from there, it's best to establish systems that work for you.
Got it. So I know you're getting into coaching now, which is very, very exciting. So do you have any just tips or advice for anybody who's just getting started in a freelance business or in freelance copywriting?
Yeah.
I know it's a huge topic, but just some quick tips. Just for anyone who maybe is listening to this and thinking, oh, I'm a good writer, I might want to do that. Do you have any just kind of words of advice to kind of figure out if it is a good choice for them?
Yeah. I think in anything in life, one of the biggest things is to find your people and like find your community. And when I started to follow the right people on Instagram and watch people on YouTube, I found confidence in myself, because when you look around yourself, oftentimes you don't see people that are as passionate about the same things you are. So if I was looking around and judging my profession by what everybody else is doing, I would not be where I am, because I really don't think anybody has the passion or accountability to do what I have done with writing, just because it takes a lot of learning how to do it and a lot of accountability and writing skills. So I would say find your people online and just start and go. Because I think if you're gonna if you really want to do something, you know that you want to do it. Like in my head, I was like, I always wanted to be a writer and I just never started. But once you start, then you can only go forward. And even if you're making small steps, just keep going, and don't sell yourself short, even as a beginner. You know things that other people don't know, and you're going to have an unfair advantage in some way over somebody else, whether that be your experiences in your life, your knowledge about certain things. Like there's something about you that makes you unique and better than the next person. So you can do it if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah, that's something that I hear a lot is that, oh, there's already so many people that are copywriters
Right.
or do Facebook ads. And I love that you said that, you are unique and you bring different things and different experiences and different perspectives to the table because again, this is one of those fields where it is personal and it is something that is, kind of subjective
Mhm.
based on the person who's actually doing it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because a lot of people are worried that these types of fields are super saturated. But again, bringing it back to what you said in the beginning about finding a niche and, finding what you do best and what you like doing best, kind of
Right.
marrying these two together, I think that is brilliant. So